Hello, friends. Thank you for checking out Fort Worth Roots, a variety interview podcast based right here in Fort Worth, Texas. This is one of 10 episodes we're releasing together for our launch. For show notes and the links to our social media accounts, go to www.fortworthroots.com. My guest today is the lead for the Matthew Show Band. He is the host of the podcast, The Barbershop. He's written 2 novels. You can find all of his content at matthewshow.com. Please give it up for Matthew Broyles. My second guest is the host of the Articulation Podcast and the owner of Art30TX. Find all of her stuff at tristastudios.com. Please give it up for Trista Morris. This episode, Matthew plays his guitar for us. I apologize for the noisy dog in the background. We talk about what it's like to be a creator during the coronavirus. Thank y'all for being here. Let's start the show. Did y'all find the place okay?
We did.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I've actually, my guitarist lives over here in this area, so I kind of knew where it was, more or
We're
less.
like, it's over near Gerald.
Y'all the jam space in the area?
I rehearse over there. Yeah, Gerald Ray, he sold me my first guitar back in 91, and now I drafted him to play for me. He's like one of the best luthiers in DFW, a guitar repair person.
I think we're going to have some trouble with terminology here. What's up?
Luthier is an instrument repair person.
Okay.
So he fixes guitars at Guitar Center down on South Hewlin, and for many years before that, he was at Craig's Music in Weatherford, and so he just knows everything about guitars, and so it's nice to have that guy in your band. You know?
He's also a damn good guitarist.
That's right. Yeah, he's also a really good player. And his son Levi Ray, I play with him. I play bass for him in his band as well.
Okay.
So
you're busy. You're a
I'm
busy
very
man.
less busy than I want to be lately. Because
right. And that's a subject that keeps coming up, and I don't think anybody's going to hold that against us because it's fresh on everybody's mind.
Yeah.
Just went through something that will not be forgotten anytime soon. Maybe not ever.
No, I mean, a couple of months ago. Well, it's nearly 3 months ago now. Yeah. I had all my gigs evaporate, and I'm luckier than a lot of people because my day job, kept paying me. Even though I wasn't working, and a lot I like Trista just lost
all of my shows.
All the income disappeared completely.
Every gallery showing.
So, I don't want to complain too much because I know a lot of people had it worse.
Right.
But it still kind of sucked to have all the gigs disappear. No, but they're starting to come back.
Yeah.
A little bit. I say my other band, Shotgun Friday, we played the Flying Saucer 25th anniversary on Friday, and it was good.
That's an honor right there.
I think so.
That is a Fort Worth landmark right there.
We were talking about it, and we kind of were part of that whole when the craft beer thing took off, about 10 years ago. Uh-huh. But the Saucer was there before that. Like they had 90 beers on tap from all over the place before that, and so they were ahead of the curve in many ways.
The location that they're at now, they've been there for about 5 years, 6 years,
something like that. I can't remember exactly. I'm old enough that I played the old location back in the late 90s, and
I'm old enough to remember it before they tore it down.
Right, and then they.
Up here then.
And what's funny to me is when you go onto that stage, they still have 8-0 on the stage.
Right.
Up there.
People are like, "What's that?" If you don't know, you don't get to know.
No,
right.
It's a secret bit of Fort Worth lore there. But no, that was cool to be part of that.
Was that the original, or was the one in Dallas the original? Surely the one in Fort Worth was.
I honestly do not know that. It's a good question because I've played both, but I can't remember.
I think the Dallas one was the original.
Really?
Might have been.
So.
That makes me sad.
But I don't know. I can't verify that.
Actually, I might be mixing that up. I
if
think
we
the
ask,
World of Beer in Dallas is the original World.
Yeah, if we ask, somebody listening to this will probably know and send you hate mail.
Yeah, we could probably Google it, but I'm not going to.
You hate mail.
So are y'all from Fort Worth? Did y'all have to drive in here from Dallas?
I live in Fort Worth. She lives in Keller.
Actually, I live on the ass end of Fort Worth. Like if you go up the street and make a right, you're in Keller.
Right, yeah.
The far ass end of Fort Worth, yes.
Okay, so you still qualify as a...
Oh, yeah.
Technically.
What are Fort Worthians called?
Well, I call them Fort Worthians, but Funky Towners has come up as a potential name. Forticans also came up, but that sounds too much like fornication to me, so I don't know that needs to be a word.
Fort Worthinites.
Fort Worthinites is pretty good.
I just
It's
made
not
that.
as easy as like Dallasites. Like you can say Dallasites, and that's relative. All that kind of sounds a little bit like a infection.
I call Dallas people the other people.
They are the other people.
Yeah.
Lord.
It's like the cousin you invite to family dinners, but
You
know
go,
you're not going to talk to him.
Yeah, I have a contentious
That's old
relationship
Jimmy
with
over
Dallas because I have some good friends over there.
Sure,
you
and
know,
I do too.
but I also
I say that kidding.
But
and
sometimes I kind of hate it though. You know, like
Yeah.
I go back and forth.
it's different, right?
It is different. The vibe is so. When I was coming up in the 90s, you know, you had to go to Dallas to play gigs because there just weren't that many clubs
where the
over
venues
here.
were, yeah.
But I have been grateful that over the last 10, 15 years, there have become more and more places to play over here, so I don't have to go to Dallas to play.
Which is nice.
'cause-
Because have you ever driven in Dallas? I'm just curious.
Yeah. The,
especially on a Friday, Saturday night.
the guy that I was just sitting here with, Lucas, he was an Uber driver, so we got to talking about that. And
yeah.
I did some Uber driving for a while.
I did as well.
And so I've driven a lot.
I've been in
Dallas.
the Bar Hill area of Dallas, which is,
Yeah.
of course, Deep Ellum.
I've
You
been
get stuck.
everywhere.
Careful with your elbow, and then it's going to rattle the. Sorry, I have a sound engineer problem.
You're fine. It's your itch. It tickles
But no,
you.
it's kind of different because like sometimes we'll play Ellum, but sometimes we'll play like Uptown, and that's a different vibe
For
too.
sure, yeah.
And then we'll play like we play like the Truck Yard up on Lower Greenville.
Oh, okay.
It's basically just a big bar area with a bunch of food trucks around it. And then they built a new one up in the Colony, which is massive. It's just huge edifice that's got a bar and a restaurant, but then it's got all the food trucks and a huge stage and everything. And
Does that
it's kinda
connect with
crazy.
Katy Trail at all, or is that too
It
far?
might. I don't even know.
Katy Trail's so big.
It goes all over the damn place. I think the one on Lower Greenville might, but yeah, it's kind of Dallas it's big enough that it has all these different kind of zones. Fort Worth sort of does because we've got your
few,
downtown,
yeah.
you got your West 7th, you got your
Magnolia.
South Side and whatnot, and which is getting bigger, and that's cool. But yeah, it's up and coming. I think that I grew up around here, and this to me is the best time to be a musician here.
Oh yeah, no doubt there.
Except for the fact that it's hard to find
It's also
gigs
the
right
best
now.
time to be an artist.
Oh yeah, coronavirus aside.
That's not nobody's fault, you know.
Riots
it's just
aside. Yeah, but there's definitely enough. There's more venues now. There's simple places like Lola's. That
Right.
are fun to go to.
We were
I don't
there-
know
yeah,
anything
we were
about
there last
playing
night.
Were you? Okay. I'm sure the crowd just came roaring back to that place.
Well, it was kind of low key.
Well, it's always low key. But I
yeah.
just mean like the crowd that they had before all this started. I'm sure
Sure.
next night, once they flip the switch, everybody's probably
Yeah,
right.
and
It was pretty spaced out. I went there to live paint and just like do a Facebook broadcast while I was working on it. It was a protest piece. And
I think I saw that. It's
Yeah.
black and white arm, right?
Yeah.
Okay, no, I did see that.
So-
I didn't get to finish like the whole thing, but
yeah.
Facebook decided that the music that was playing in the background was copyrighted, so it like muted half the stream. I was like,
Damn
you know what?
it.
Because
fuck my life.
they had the Dre and Eminem and whatnot, and they have these little algorithm detectors, I guess, that can
Get
tell.
me started. Yeah.
It's kind of a pain in the ass. But
rough.
yeah, no, it was like there was like maybe 15 people there. Like it was really,
Which
and they
on
were
a
spaced
Saturday
out
night-
across. They only had the trailer.
But I
park
was
open,
talking
so.
to Joe, the sound guy up there, and he was saying that there had been some discussions about trying to maybe at least do some broadcasts from there. Kind of like Mass has been doing. But I
I'm
don't.
so glad you mentioned Mass because I was hoping somebody would bring Mass up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I played in April. I played their little social distancing broadcast thing,
okay.
and it's cool because that's probably the best. I broadcast from my house all the time, but I use my dang phone. Well, they had a really nice rig to broadcast high quality show, and full credit to Mark Randall for doing that. But
Shout out to Mark Randall.
but I think
Mark
that
Randall is
he's the sound guy at Mass,
Okay.
and he rigged all that up really, really nicely.
okay.
But they're also really good. Alan Brown does the booking over there, and he's really good at spreading the word and getting people to tune in and making sure people are encouraged to tip.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing. They were having that at the Post. My friend Riker Hall was playing a broadcast from there.
That's one I'm not familiar with. Where's that at?
It's over on Race Street, over on, so if you take Belknap past downtown to the east, it'll hit Race Street, and there's a bunch of stuff over there, the Tributary Cafe, and
The Post.
There's
Martin House Brewery right there?
it's in that area.
It's,
Okay.
it's around
It's
the
south- it's
like
south of
you
there.
You take a right basically on what's that fucking road?
Sylvania.
Sylvania.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you just keep going until you hit what, 4th.
Yeah, that's where Martin House is. But if you go north from Martin House and hit Belknap and take a right, it'll be a little ways down. But the Post is a really nice. So I don't know if you're familiar with Fort Worth Live. It was a venue that was over the Red Goose Saloon downtown, kind of on that strip where Uno's Pizza is and all that.
Yeah.
So Brooks Kendall runs that, and he ran Fort Worth Live, and then they moved out to that Post location. What it is it's an old post office, but half of it burned down. And so, but they left the part that had burned down without a roof, so they've got this really nice patio out there. And then there's an internal part where they've got a nice sound system that's kind of the leftover PA and curtains and stuff from the Live Oak, which used to be down on Magnolia, which was
Frankenstein of
It's-
local
yes,
venues.
yes,
Yes.
and it's got and it employs half the Fort Worth music scene,
Yes.
like Izzy
What's
Jeffrey
interesting
Liz
about
works
the
there.
Post, honestly, is there's an art show that happens there called the Ray Street Rollick, and before it was the Post, it was just an empty building with half of it burned and a back area that was, I guess they had fixed it up, but it wasn't bought yet. But they were having vendors set up inside the building in the courtyard and inside the inner portion of the building. And I remember walking through going, just talking to somebody and going, wow, this has nice sound.
Yeah, and it is. It's got great acoustics. My buddy Jacob Furr plays there on the patio on a regular basis, and it's got really good acoustics. But and my friend Clay Anderson, my bass player Clay Anderson, is one of the sound guys up there, and he has described it as the best room he's ever mixed in. It's just as far as the sound of the room is really nice. So
It's perfect for that kind of
if you get to catch a show there, you should.
Yeah, for sure.
When they start having them again.
Yeah, and that's something that I admittedly have been slacking on. I really enjoy local music, more so than just going to a restaurant and hearing it play in the background.
Sure.
I like to go to live shows.
Absolutely.
I like to interact with the bands.
Well,
I've been missing out. So I've been working so much, and I'm not complaining because of what we just went through.
Oh, I know.
Happy to have a job,
but at the same time, you do miss. I miss being able to just say, "Gosh, I wonder who's down at Twilight tonight," and just wandering down there and going to see. And sometimes it's Squeezebox Bandits or it's whatever, But now it's kind of like, is there anyone playing? And then you find the one show, and then you can go to that if you're feeling squirrely. But it's a different way of living. And what the cool thing is though, so I've been doing the broadcast from my house, and other people in town have been doing it. But what's also been cool is that like famous people who I'm a fan of are also doing that.
right,
And so
kind of leveling the playing field.
yeah. So like I'm tuning in like that. He's in his living room just like I am playing this show. I mean, now granted he's got 3,000 people watching, but at the same time, it's pretty cool that we're all kind of in that boat, and that, like you said, it levels it a little bit, in as much as it ever is. The music industry, there was an article somebody posted a while back that was kind of saying, maybe the old music industry needed to be killed off so that we can build a new one, because a lot of the way the industry is constructed is not friendly to artists. And maybe if we can, once things kind of start cranking back up, maybe we can come up with some more equitable arrangements to make that the case.
Crossing my fingers because there's far too many starving musicians and far too many starving artists in the scene right now.
But that said, Fort Worth, I think, is a better city for compensating its musicians than a lot of other ones are. Yeah. For instance, Austin, you can't get paid in Austin to save your life. Yeah. Because if you don't take the gig, there's 500 other bands behind you to take the gig. Yeah. But Fort Worth, you can actually be like, I'll play this for, this amount, and they'll actually give it to you, and and so it's
kind of the sweet spot, right? I mean,
it really is, and that's why I'm optimistic about it, is I think Fort Worth, number one, they get people who actually care about, the music.
Right.
Number two, you have venue owners who seem to be more interested in making sure the artists are well taken care of. Part of that is because they employ those artists as well as like servers and door guys and that kind of thing. So I think there's more of a community there, and when you know the people you're working with, you tend to treat them better than if they're just some kind of nameless rabble that's lining up at the door to play.
Lola's is a great example of that.
Yeah, they've been better about. It's funny because I played in that rock assembly that they did, which is it's basically a night of tribute bands, but it's all these local bands become another band for a night, and so we became Toad the Wet Sprocket, and played the hits and all that. But it was funny because
That's pretty
all the proceeds were going to charities and stuff, and
Anyone in particular?
I can't. That's my brain is blipping on me as to when because it was back in November.
But it's for charity.
But we all we're all starving musicians and all that kind of. But we're also like, cool. Let's raise money for something that's worth raising money for, and in the process,
give a shout out to Tony Diaz for setting that up.
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
You should have him on the show because
Have him holler at me.
he's and I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. I'm promoting Tony Diaz for mayor.
Tony
in the next
Diaz
election
for mayor, y'all.
because he accidentally said that the other day, and then everyone started rushing up, going, "Dude, you really should run for mayor." And
He
he's
literally
like, "No."
just put the word mayor with a period behind it. Everybody was like, "Go, Tony!"
He doesn't want to be mayor, but I think we're going to make him be.
And Melissa, you can totally be the wife of a mayor. I believe in you.
When is the next election for mayor?
It's not this year. I think it's the year after. It's an off-year election.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was funny that suddenly all these people were like, "Yeah, Tony for mayor," and but I don't think he'd be a bad one, honestly.
I wonder if the current mayor is ready to just throw in the towel.
I can
everything
see
she just went through.
Well, and that, but some of it's her own doing. It's like there are.
Oh, we're just venting, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. There's Betsy. I've played shows with her. It's a funny thing to say, but we've done.
Yeah,
we've
I did
done,
an event with her too.
Right, and met her, talked to her a little bit. She's not a bad
Very
person,
nice lady, yeah.
but I think sometimes her handling of things is a little bit ham-handed, and I think that
Insensitive.
Yeah, it just seems kind of. But again, I think she won by like 5,000 votes last time, which is not a lot. So I don't know. I don't know what
how many people vote.
Not as many.
I
in
bet
local
the numbers are
elections,
lower and lower every year.
Well, in Texas is a low turnout state regardless. So even in presidential years, we have a less than 50% turnout rate. So in local elections, even less than that. Sometimes it's like 11, 15%. So the margins you're dealing with are considerably smaller. So 5,000 votes can be
that's huge,
a good
right?
percentage, which is funny because Fort Worth, you think about how fast Fort Worth is growing.
Yeah.
I think somebody was saying that in the last 10 years, Tarrant County had a 50% or 47% growth rate or something like that, which is ridiculous.
Well, and all the surrounding areas too.
Yeah, you can see it. Well, you can see it every day. You can see it when you go out on the streets and just the sheer number of people. Now, again, with the COVID thing, you haven't seen as many of them as many of the actual people so much as their cars. But, the rate at which we're growing, I'm curious to see if that leads to, it's leading to demographic changes. It's leading to, we went blue in 2018,
in Dallas.
In Tarrant.
Oh,
which is the
really?
first time that it happened.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's kind of it's a different time for Fort Worth, and we're also though in the middle of kind of a economic moment where a lot of people are moving to Texas in general.
Oh yeah,
from other places, and but that has consequences for artists because that's part of why we're able to go to a place and ask for a couple $100 to play. A happy hour or whatever, because there are people and they and they want quality. They're not just going to hire Joe Schmo off the street, because you do get what you pay for to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Dallas used to do that a lot. They'd be like, oh, well, you want money for this, but that guy will play it for free. Well, then you hear that guy and you're like, you should have paid for the, it makes a difference.
Right.
And I think that the rise of places like, so we book with 13th Floor Entertainment in Dallas, which is my friend Ken Welker runs that.
Marketing firm?
It's a booking agency.
Booking agency?
And him and Spoon, Alan Brown books with Spoon, and Matt Jones does a lot of local booking, and there's a lot of really good booking agencies that have popped up in the last few years that have helped a lot, because the thing that you don't want to do as an artist is to be the bad guy with the venue owner and to say, well,
What do you mean?
well, so the venue owner says, we'll pay you $50, right? And you go, I kind of think that I'm worth more than that, and and
Is that
They
a
try
real
to
thing?
oh,
That's a
absolutely,
real
it's a
thing.
real thing.
$50 for what? That's not worth showing up.
Yeah, well, it depends. You're playing for exposure.
$50 for 2 hours.
Let me tell you
is
something
usually
about
what
that
it is.
exposure.
Well, you can die
thing.
from exposure. There's
You have died.
Especially the way you're talking about. You could starve to death.
that's what I'm saying. Is
Jesus,
that?
man.
But what you need is somebody.
That's true of the art industry.
But
too,
the
by way.
problem with artists, though, when we're performers, and so we like people to like us.
Sure.
Right. So you get up on stage, and you want people to like you. So when you're talking to venue owners, you want them to like you also. So you don't want to be arguing with them about dude, that's kind of insulting what you
$50 to
gave
come
me.
and perform at a venue, though, that is insulting.
I have often found it that way, but what I like to be able to do is to call Alan or Ken or whoever and say, hey, can you talk to the manager guy and see if we can bump it up a little more? And often it's better coming from a third party who can talk the business speak to them.
Right.
And then that way you don't have to have the argument. And then once the number is agreed upon, then you can just show up and make people like you.
Well, some of this has to do with the culture of it, right? I mean, the guy that's going to need to keep the lights on so that people can come and enjoy
Exactly.
the artist's music,
Right.
he's got to take all these things into consideration. And if the community is not willing to pay a $2 cover charge or a $5 cover charge, well, then guess what? They're not going to pay the artist.
And that's why you think about, so for instance, the Saucer, right? Saucer makes plenty of money because they're in a great location and they have loyal customers.
Right.
So they don't charge a cover. They just pay you outright. They're just like, we know we're going to make X amount of money tonight, so we're just going to pay you this.
Depending on who it is, they charge a cover.
Well, that's true.
I've
Okay,
seen
that's
them
true.
charge
Sometimes they do.
So before we move on, though, my point
Sorry.
is if
Yeah.
you're going to get off your couch and you're going to go out and you're going to listen to local music, you need to understand that one thing that you're doing is you're showing your support for the local music scene.
Yes.
So maybe if you're going to walk into a venue that either charges a cover or doesn't charge a cover, you need to go for the one that charges a cover.
In some cases, yeah. It really depends because, like, if you're going to a local brewery, sometimes they're not charging a cover because they know they'll make it off of other things, like off you buying, the commemorative glass or whatever it is. But I agree with you that when you walk into a place that's not charging cover and it doesn't look like, I don't know. Maybe I've developed more of a sense of this from playing places. I'm like, this place doesn't look like it's paying that guy very much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reading your mind as you're talking about it. I understand your intention there.
You're on the right track, which is to say, because a lot of people, this is kind of a common musician joke. Is like, I had 50 people, but 30 of them were on the list, right? because before the gig, you get the text, hey man, can you put me on the list?
With the band,
I
bought the T-shirt and everything,
and that's cool to a degree. I put people on the list, but I am often cognizant of that when I go to see shows. Instead of calling Jacob or whoever and going, hey, can you put me on the list? I go, you know what? I think I'll pay the cover because I know that's going to go to the artist.
I just felt like I had kind of a visceral reaction to that when you said $50 to play at a venue. That's insane, man.
Well, but you know what?
You'd be surprised how often.
Yeah.
It
I
happens.
mean, I wouldn't be surprised because I understand the economics of it. But
like you said, there's math. There's math. So when you're a venue owner, and I know enough venue owners, and I have booked bands for venues before, so I understand that there's math involved with like, okay, we can only pay this band X amount because on a Thursday night or whenever, this is about how much we make.
Yeah.
So this is our threshold. This is how
Right.
much we want. Now, what the venue is kind of banking on when they book a band is that band will bring in more people. But, of course, that's a crapshoot. You don't know if they will or not. And some nights they will, some nights they won't. Depends on what night it is. And so there's only so much you can gamble. Now, that's why the cover comes up. Is so you're like, well, okay, if you're pulling out of the cover, the bar that's not money the bar was going to make anyway. That's going to the artist.
Yeah.
Whereas if you arrange a guarantee because you don't want to mess with the cover and you want people to just come in without having to worry about the cover, then you kind of estimate a number that you think you can pay the band that you will make back.
Right.
And it's a tough calculation. I know it's a tough calculation. And there's some places that can just go, here's $1,000, come play the show, and they don't worry about it because they know they have people. But then there's smaller places that do have to worry about that a lot. And I don't begrudge those people that. But there is usually a happy medium that you can come to in amongst all of those. And it depends on what it is. Like if I'm playing full band show, there's one type of energy you're putting forth. But if you're doing a solo acoustic thing, it's a different type of thing. And you're going to draw differently depending on what the situation is. So,
I'll let it go. I'll
No, you shouldn't let it. No, believe me. Preach to your friends. Tell them.
Well,
if you're going to,
before the coronavirus thing, I feel like, you got people that get it and they tip accordingly. Right. So if I go out to eat and I'm at a table for 2 hours, but I only spend $10, I'm not tipping 30%. I'm probably going to leave a $10 bill because I've been there for a long time. I eat up that server's table.
Right.
Just consider the other people. I mean, that person is making $2.13 an hour.
Exactly.
And you sat at their source of revenue for 2 hours. Leave a little extra money. He didn't buy shit.
That in and of itself is an entire other subject. We could go on
It
and on
is.
about.
It is. But, I mean, just being cognizant of what's going on around you,
Right.
and then you got a musician that came out to
Yeah.
I hold a lot of value in that.
And I'm glad we are glad that you do.
Well, anybody listening to this probably does too.
Yeah.
I mean, the podcast scene is full of people that enjoy art in general, and I'm not talking about sculptures and paintings, which that's fine too. But the local music scene is very important to a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. But I've seen that. That's again why I think Fort Worth is kind of special. Is that as soon as the COVID lockdowns happened, all these live streams started popping up, and people were actually tipping to the live stream.
Right.
And that's a thing that doesn't always happen because there is sometimes the expectation that, especially on the internet, people are like, oh, look, it's something I can watch for free. I'm just going to watch it for free.
Yeah.
But there's been enough thought process that with people watching going, hey, that's that guy that I saw down at Twilight or whatever. And, and I know he doesn't have any gigs right now. I'm going to send him $20,
Live streaming has kind of opened up a bigger reach, I think, because you can not only reach people in your town by doing a live stream, but you can reach people all across the United States. So it's been good for that too.
Probably, right?
Yeah, international.
Well, and I've been doing. This is a very nerdy thing that I do. Is since 2006, I've been in Second Life, which is a little virtual world.
How's that going?
So, well, it's still hopping, and you can play shows in there. So I hook up my microphone, broadcast it into Second Life, and a bunch of people's little avatars show up, and they attend the show like they would in Meets, but they're listening at home on their computers.
Great for introverts.
Yeah, it's really great for introverts. But it's also, there's a tip mechanism, so they can tip you for that. So I've been doing that for 16 odd years.
So on their side of the screen, they see you.
They see my avatar with his little guitar.
Okay.
And they hear what's coming out of my mic at home.
Okay.
And they can chat with each other in the room.
You're like, quiet, shut up.
Or whatever.
Down in front.
Right.
I'm playing here.
Exactly. Yeah, I can. That's actually what's kind of cool about it is after years of kind of playing, when I was getting started, I had to play kind of some crappy bars because you got to.
That's what you do.
That's earning your stripes there. But I was would get tired of the occasional drunk yelling stuff at me or things like. And what I liked about Second Life is there was none of that.
Yeah.
Occasionally you'd get somebody who would activate a graphic that would rain green penises onto people, but other than that, it was fine.
Is that something worked into the program, or is that?
Yeah, you can build little effects.
All right, Mark Zuckerberg, we need you to go ahead and implement a new feature.
That man has done enough. He needs to go to another barbecue and enjoy some delicious meat.
Lieutenant Commander Data. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah,
he's creepy to watch.
Yeah, I do think he's an android.
Very mechanical.
I'm pretty sure he's an android, but
He might be. He really. Did you see the video where he's talking about we're having a barbecue with some meats?
Yes.
What?
Meats, as you humans would call them. Yeah.
It was very strange. And you're watching him, and you're just like, you're waiting for his head to pop off or
Right,
something,
yeah.
right?
I think the dude was engineered in a vat or something. I don't know, but
Well, I feel like I have more faith in robots. Honestly,
I do like.
I would call him an android, but I think androids would probably be more attractive and smarter.
Well, because you can make them look like whatever you want. So
That's true. Yeah.
why would they look like that? I don't know.
I don't know. You got a point. I don't know. I'm really looking forward to like sentient robots. I feel like that's the future.
Well, I think there's a lot
Church not
of
in the repertoire.
jobs that I think you should just go ahead and turn over to the robots because there's stuff that people just don't need to be doing.
The robots right now are totally dependent on our level of creativity.
Yes.
So once we get to a point where they can start making themselves, then I think.
Well,
we
then
can
we
turn
have
to
the
robots.
singularity, and then we
You
have.
don't think we've already had the singularity?
I don't think we have because correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the idea of the singularity is that technology is growing at a pace beyond which our brains can no longer keep up with it. Now, maybe we're pretty close.
You're assuming we're not right now in a
Well,
simulation.
okay, that's well, I mean, that's obviously the if we are,
Neither of us took the right pill. Like,
might not have had that option.
right.
You're like, what's the real?
Simulation? You could have been in that vat of goo.
It's real
200
funny
years ago.
because I have a couple of theologian friends, and they debate stuff like this all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if we are in a simulation, there's some biblical evidence that might be the case. There's and in religions across the world, there's this idea that there's the actual reality, and then there's the reality that we see, and then there's at some level there's a behind the curtain that occurs, whether in Buddhism or any kind of faith like that, and that's very similar to these discussions that people have about. And it also kind of makes you think about multiverse as well, because if you were running a simulation, you might run multiple versions alongside each other to kind of A/B and see how each of them are doing. Have a control group, and I think we're in the variable group myself.
The variable group.
I think they're trying some new variables.
Yeah, we're in the weird one for sure. Do you have a version? Do you have an idea of where we're at? Oh, you do. Wait, you just don't want to tell me.
We're just floating right now.
I still think that weasel.
I think somebody threw in a virus, honestly, if you want my opinion.
There was a weasel that got into the Large Hadron Collider a few years ago.
This really happened?
Yeah.
How did it get in?
Well, this is what I did. It's underground, and so those things tunnel.
Right, but isn't the damn thing like sealed? It has
supposedly.
Okay, a weasel.
But so supposedly
And
a
it's
weasel
underground,
got
so
into
they
the Large
could.
Hadron Collider and messed with some of the circuitry and made a little explosion down there, and that was around about 2016.
Oh shit!
And so I think the
that
weasel
solves everything.
I think the weasel shifted us off to an alternate timeline.
Pretty sure. I'd have to check with my father to ask him how the wiring in those things works, because he worked on the prototype basically. But I'm pretty sure that something went off. Like, have you seen Stranger Things? That big ass machine. I'm pretty sure something like that happened.
Question on that though, because the Hydrogen Collider, is that what?
Large Hadron Collider. Yeah.
Hadron. Okay, I always call it something wrong.
LHC. You can
But the
call
whole
it that.
thing's made out of metal, right?
Yeah.
What was the weasel using for toothpaste? Because
I can't even tell you. I mean, I know little enough about particle physics and even less about weasels. So I'm not sure.
They're skinny.
My
they
guess
fit in
is
small
that he came in
spaces.
what do they always do
Wires
in the
are made
movies?
of
They always
rubber
come in
and
through a
fiber
ventilation
optics.
shaft.
Right. Yeah.
There's
There's
probably a
vent.
ventilation shaft that he came in through, and there was a rusty bolt or something, and he knocked out.
Right.
And somebody had a sandwich that he was smelling, and came in and somehow
know,
got
It's
his
the
tail
asshole with
stuck
the
in the
sandwich.
mechanism.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right because I think who was I talking to? Maybe Molly. Molly was my first one today that we sat down and did an episode, but we were talking about how technology is, something we just accidentally stumble on things. And so if you're right about the weasel thing with the sandwich, if you're right about that, then that's two stories that I'm aware of where science was altered because of somebody leaving their damn lunch out. Microwaves were discovered. There was I don't know if it was an army guy or some kind of military experiment where they're working on communications. And somebody left their lunch out. And they came back after working on something else, and they came back, and it's like a cool day. And he comes back, and his lunch is warm. And he's like, what? Why's my lunch warm? Well, as it turns out, a microwave, which is a communications thing initially, vibrates water molecules at a molecular level very quickly, and it creates heat. And so his lunch was warm. So if you're right about the weasel thing, there's two really screwed up situations.
I think actually there's way more examples of that. I think in science in general.
Oh, yeah.
There's all kinds of stuff where people didn't know that the thing they were doing was science until they looked down and realized it. They were like, oh, wait, this is doing that. Maybe it's going to,
These mostless, hairless monkeys are now drawn to these audio interfaces and having conversations that go in through these cords and then out to the internet. And this is all just a data collection thing that
if I were one of the observers of this particular reality, I would be fascinated. I would just be like, what are they going to do next?
Let's put this in the mix and see what happens now. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't put it past it, honestly.
You'd probably be talking about meat suits if you were an observer, by the way.
Meat suits, maybe, I don't know, so.
They're talking with their meat.
There was a sci-fi story years ago where an alien race was trying to describe humanity, and they were like, well, they're made of meat, and like, how do they communicate? Well, they blow air through their meat and they flap their meat, and that's what we do. And we're weird.
Was it one of those silly like little, almost like stick cartoon things?
Yeah, somebody has made a pictorial version. This came out years ago, and
I like stuff like that.
I thought it was funny because even you think about it,
kind of like Far Side.
We're we're all kind of. I think those of us who are more well adjusted in the world are so because we realize that we're ridiculous.
Oh yeah. Well, how exactly could you avoid that at this point?
Well,
like just looking at what's going on.
Yeah, but people do though. People take themselves entirely too seriously most of the time, and I know I'm ridiculous, and I plunk my little wooden steel thing and sing songs about dumb crap all the time, and it's just
I don't like it whenever the when the person making the movie shows a gun and then the gun never gets fired.
Never goes off.
Right.
Yeah. No.
You brought a guitar.
I did.
Here.
No. Well,
break that open.
Check this out. All right.
You want to tell me about your idea for what we're doing here in this reality?
Oh, what we're doing here in this reality?
Yeah.
Well, presently, people have been consuming a huge amount of art and not paying for it. So I have concerns.
No. I mean, like we were talking about like the simulation.
Oh, the simulation. You want to?
Yeah.
I haven't had enough coffee to cover that right now. That's why you caught me like spacing out in the ether. I was like, wow, the outside. Let's let him play us.
Now, I don't know how the microphone setup's going to work with that.
We will find out.
Yeah.
I imagine these are not too.
Maybe if you adjust it lower.
Well, actually, here's what I'll tell you exactly what we can do.
You want to take mine?
You take this.
Point that down.
And you do that.
Now we definitely can't touch the table now. Oh, that sounds good. Yeah.
All right. So, since we were talking about Fort Worth, I'm going to play a song about Fort Worth that I wrote recently. Should I do that one or should I do the COVID tune? I'll do the Lake Lake Monster.
I don't know. You sure you don't want to sing about why you don't get any sleep?
I don't know. I sent you a bunch of tracks. If you can throw them in there later, but
yeah, you sent me those 3 through email. Mm-hmm. I loved every single one of them.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
cool. Okay,
that was
good.
awesome. And were those wave
is that
format?
a request?
We've been talking a lot about Fort Worth. Let's do the trivia to Fort Worth.
Okay.
Yeah, I like
But-
that a lot.
Yeah, no, so I'm sorry, you'd ask, those were MP3s that I
Okay.
sent you.
Yeah.
So it's,
So if you're listening, I'll take at least one of those tracks and I'll throw it in at the tail end of the episode.
so this is a tune that is one of those tracks, and you can toss that one if you want, but we are putting out, the Matthew Show is putting out a series of singles in the next few months, and this is going to be the first one. It's called The Lake Worth Monster. And it's a little bit nostalgic at this point because some of these places that I list in here no longer exist. But that law firm right there was a club that we played back in 19. Christ, you were in the 4th grade, and the girl who books shows there makes movies in Austin today. So come on now, let's play in the shack by the river. Used to have bras in all the rafters, and the halfway house calls out the next inmate number. Doesn't like the guitar. Should I start that over? I'll start over so we can have a clean take. Well, that law firm right there was a club that we played back in 19. Christ, you were in the 4th grade, and the girl who books shows there makes movies in Austin today. So come on now, let's play in the shack by the river. We used to have bras in all the rafters, and the halfway house calls out the next inmate number. I sip on my whiskey and pray I'll make it through one more day. And I've traveled this town from the bars to the parks, and I've heard it make promises to me in the dark, and it lies just like I do, but it loves all the mess that we make. I am the monster who lives by the lake. Now downtown used to be dark as hell in the night. Now it's all full of grackles and those bright Christmas lights. So I went down to the chat room so Taylor could fix me a drink. And I sat down to think about all of those people who've been good to me, even when I'm a bastard, even when I can't see. And I try to believe them when they tell me that I'll be okay, that I'll make it through one more day. And I've traveled this town from the bars to the parks, and I've heard it make promises to me in the dark, and it lies just like I do, but it loves all the mess that we make. I am the monster who lives by the lake. I'm driving up tollways with polite little trees, and I'm driving up north side past cemeteries that remind me of how little the time that I've got left to be. Whatever I'll be, and I wanna love all of those people I love, and I wanna drink life from a big showdown cup, and I don't wanna leave all of this damage I leave, and the rent keeps on rising. I wonder how long I can be a part of this big tapestry. Now West 7th is changing. The dude bros run free. and the bars on Magnolia, they don't want acts like me. But Leon is playing from a speaker somewhere down the street. The circle's complete, so good night to the woo girls, good night to the bards, and good night to the bass cops with stars upon Mars, and good night to the dreamers wherever in town you may be. Old, young, and all those yet to be. And I've traveled this town from the bars to the parks, and I've heard it make promises to me in the dark, and it lies just like I do, but it loves all the mess that we make. I am the monster who lives by the lake. I am the monster who lives by the lake. I am the monster who lives by the lake.
Damn.
You like it?
Man, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
The whole time you're playing from start to finish, after we got rid of the disruptive dog.
Offending dog.
Yeah. That was very humbling sitting here and watching you play.
It's very, I think it's cool that you're doing this, that you're having people just come and, talk about stuff.
Well, it's not even my idea. It's
Doesn't have to be.
It's a collaboration of everybody else's idea and then me just putting it together. So
Yeah, but you know what's rare though is people who put stuff together. Everybody's got ideas.
that's right.
Very few people actually
where-
execute.
Right. And where's the best place to find all the best ideas?
Well, there's not one place, but
It's a good place though.
Is there?
Graveyard.
Well, that's true. There's a lot of good
I had somebody
ideas
tell
for
me
that.
that one time, and it was right before I started my first business, and it put a put a fire into my ass is what it did, because I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to do it.
There are, yeah.
As a couple that frequents graveyards, I'm going to have to agree.
There's a lot of ideas that are out there, and the tricky bit, and that's funnily that's always been my role in any band that I'm in. A lot of times is to
Trigger puller.
is to be right. It's like somebody goes, "Hey, what if we did this?"
Boom.
Yeah, and so I'm like, well, okay, if we're going to do this, we need this, and this, and because I've been in other situations where there was nobody to do that, and then it was all ideas and no execution, and so I've tried to. Part of why the resume that you read at the beginning of the program is so dang long,
Dude, I'm here to tell you. No,
is because I have a compulsive need when I hear an idea that is cool. I don't actually wait to verify it to see if it's profitable or not.
Yeah.
I just go try it and see
Brother.
what happens.
Yeah, I'm the same way, and I got to ask you, since you brought this up, is your family just like the people, your friends, your family, are they just exhausted by your next new idea?
Sometimes, yeah.
I feel bad whenever I start something new, because I've had so many ideas.
You have all the other things that you're still
Yeah,
doing. Well, it's I get picked on a little bit by it sometimes.
I'm not worried about being picked on. I'm worried about
His fiddle
wearing
player
everybody
Beth
out.
has been like, "Oh yeah, no, we were just finishing an album, and then he wrote a book, and I don't know when he wrote the book." It's like, oh.
Yeah. It's kind of, it's
Oh, by the way, I wrote a novel.
right. Well, it's one of those. Yeah, but that took me 7 years. I just didn't tell anybody about it.
Right.
The thing is that the reason I don't sleep is because there's always stuff going on in there, and it sucks for my health, but it's good for my brain once you can actually grab a hold of something and do something with it. Yeah. The worst part is when you have it all flying around in there and you're not making it happen. I've been stymied, the last little while because I was trying to figure out how to get the money together to finish up this record. Yeah. And but then I happened upon a strategy that would work, and which is why we're doing the single releases. And then once all the singles are out, then we'll bundle them up and then stick it out as a record.
It pays for itself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
That's the idea. Well, because I came of age at a time when the album was a thing, where
Right.
you know, if you're going to put out anything, it had to be on an album.
Yeah.
And
Now it's all about singles.
I'm having to rewire my brain a little bit to think, why? There's no reason to
Yeah,
do that.
right.
Cody Lynn Boyd is a local songwriter. He doesn't even put out albums. He just puts out a single every month or two. And nobody cares. You know, they just buy the single and don't worry about the fact that they don't have a CD, because half the people that come to my shows don't want CDs. They want the download, or they want the Spotify, or they want the whatever. So,
well, and I'm finding myself moving away from, I guess I'm completely away from it. I used to buy CDs at a point where I felt like I was the oldest guy in the world buying CDs.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
I still do it. I
haven't bought a CD in a long time. Now, if I'm at a local show and they're selling CDs, I'll buy one.
Yeah, that's where I buy them.
I might not ever listen to it.
That's where.
But I'll buy it, just to support the
exactly.
Road trips are the best time to listen to those.
That's
for
true.
sure,
Yeah,
for sure. If you've got a vehicle with a CD player,
right.
Yeah, that's
Which
true.
increasingly there's ones that don't. Yeah. I was surprised.
First time I saw that, I was floored. Yeah.
My work laptop, I was like, "Where's the CD drive?"
The what?
And
I'm sorry. How old are you? Well, I was born in 2001.
it's like me going. Well, this doesn't have a floppy disk on it. You know, it's like, I mean,
Where do I put the
How do I rewind the tape?
You know what's crazy about that though is when stuff comes back around. So like,
oh yeah,
in the 90s, we didn't put out CDs; we put out tapes because that's what we could afford, and so local tapes were everywhere. Well, then that kind of disappeared. Well, now you go to like Dreamy Life or whatever. They got a big rack of local tapes
and vinyl. There's a big market for vinyl now. There's a place over there off of Exchange or on Exchange, I guess.
Chief Records.
Is that the name of it? All the way at the back.
Yeah, that's a nice record store.
I would like to get somebody from that store on here because I talked to.
I can get you somebody from the store on here. Yeah.
Okay, let them know. I talked to a girl down there, and she was telling me all the people that come through there, all the celebrities and.
It used to be bit of lore here. It used to be the Ernest Tubb record store, and Ernest Tubb was an old country singer in the 50s, 60s, and he owned that thing. And then it kind of passed into their hands. Yeah. And so they've got a lot of really good stuff in there.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And they have local acts that come in and play, and that was actually the first place that I recorded a barbershop episode because I was intent on making sure to record it in a local music place.
Real quick before we go on, I got to get better about this, but the place that we're talking about is down in the Stockyards. Yeah. Exchange is the street that has the big Fort Worth Stockyards sign. If you go all the way to like the west end of that street, I'm sorry, east end of that street. If you go all the way to the end, there's a couple of restaurants. Stockyard Station is what it's called?
Stockyard Station is a shopping center down there, and it used to be the
train
place.
Depot?
Well, yeah, it was a train depot.
That's
right.
There's a
There's
rail
tracks
that goes through it.
there. And that was also, if you go further down into it, there's some places where they used to have the sheep and the goats and whatnot. Mm-hmm. It's very rustic and authentic. But yeah, they've got shops.
I can't tell you how long I lived here before I realized that thing went down and there were shops.
You know what's funny
it's
about?
Really cool.
There's even an underground section.
What? Okay, I didn't know that.
That's where you.
Ramp and that's where all the animals are kept.
Right. That's where. Or used to be kept. Yeah.
Where for the cattle drive and all that.
Yeah.
Man, so I've been here for 12 years. I didn't know that.
But that's what's funny about that is that there's people who've lived there lived here all their lives who really don't go to the stockyards and they don't really know.
Well, I boycotted it for a while because I thought it was way too touristy, and it is, but
it's
also a lot of fun. So
and it does have historical significance.
Yep.
And
you rode the mechanical bull, didn't you?
I rode the bull over on. Oh Jesus, where were we? That's over there across from Varsity. What's the name of that place?
Landmark.
Yeah, they got the bull out there.
Yeah, I think I rode that bull.
How'd that go?
Well, I lost.
You always lose eventually. You always lose.
They amp up the speed on that.
Yeah, the women have more fun on that because it seems like the operator takes it a little easier on them. With the guys, they're just like, get off of the bull. This is not for you. It's like an adult showing up at the ball pit, like, excuse me, sir.
You're not. Yeah, get
I
off
am
the.
that adult.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's kind of funny because I grew up in Weatherford mostly with the ag kids, who like would do actual bull riding and stuff, and they, they laugh at me with my mechanical bull. They're like, you don't know what but no, I know I don't know what I'm doing. I just it's just for.
Have you ever
grins.
ridden an actual bull?
No, hell no, because those will kill you.
That's how you die.
Yeah.
I watch every year. I don't know. Do you go to the show every year?
I went to enough of them when I was a kid, but no, they will kill you. Like they will not mess around with that.
What is the annual show? It's the stock show.
Stock show.
Annual stock show. I go every year, and
that's right across from my apartment. Yeah.
One of the which ones are you at?
I'm over off where the Dickies Arena is.
Uh-huh.
It's right across Montgomery from that.
Okay, I used to be at Lancaster.
Okay,
over there on Curry.
Yeah, we were more or less neighbors.
Yeah. Yeah, probably gonna move back there someday. I love it.
It's
it got
cool.
a little noisy. I'm glad I wasn't
it's
down there
definite.
for coronavirus. And
Oh my gosh,
the riots. I'm glad I wasn't
There's
there
a
for
lot
that.
of interesting things that going on right now. It's interesting because Montgomery was under construction forever, and they finally finished it up, and they finished this massive arena that they can't use because no one's going to shows
it got a little
eventually.
action. It got a little action for like the first year, and then because they completed it at the beginning of 2019, I think.
It was November 2019 because I remember when it opened because the first or actually it was October because the first act they had in there was
George Strait.
Well, that was the first official one, but first it was 21 Pilots. George State was the first one that was booked there. But
they did the stock show this year.
Yeah, they did it there, which was in February.
Was that when that was?
It's in February every year.
Now
you're right.
Us with the GOP convention at the Dickies.
Well, I don't know if that'll happen or not. I don't know if that'll happen or not. That's going to be a cluster if they do that. But
that's a terrible idea.
Because it's a big place.
Fill those seats, baby. Whatever.
It's a big place, but it's not a big place. It's I'm glad Fort Worth has it because
it's way bigger than the last one.
Well, that's the other thing is that they're going to tear down the big freaking the thing downtown.
Oh yeah. I thought you were going to say
not the Will Rogers, not Will Rogers. No, they're tearing down
that.
the big disc thing
Civic
downtown.
Center. What do they call that?
Fort Worth Convention Center.
Convention Center. Yeah.
Which is interesting because
Civic
it
Center's
is. I'm curious what they're going to do with that space because before it was that. It was Hell's Half Acre. It was a stretch of bars that was it was part of Hell's Half Acre. It stretched further north than that, but it was where they had a lot of really bad dangerous places to be, and one of which in later years was the original Cellar Club that was kind of the home of Fort Worth's rock and roll underground in the '60s. And
I have a secret. If you go to YouTube and you look up Mr. the Matthew Show, you can find a video of him playing.
That's not that Cellar.
That's not the Cellar?
No, that's the new. That was the new Cellar. No, the old Cellar. The old Cellar was down where the big disc is now, and it's across from that hotel, which was the last hotel.
Look up that video.
It was where JFK slept the night before he got shot. And the night before he got shot, all the Secret Service guys went and got drunk at the Cellar. Bob Schieffer has verified this because he was with them.
So the owner of the Cellar might have been the reason JFK got
well,
knocked
I wouldn't
up.
say that. I wouldn't say that.
Hold on, hear me out. If those guys all went to the same bar and got the same level of intoxication, maybe they'd have been a little prepared.
Might have been a little more alert. I don't know. You know, it's kind of the rabbit hole goes deep.
Oh, it does.
The sniper was hungover, basically.
Yeah, well, no, Oswald
Secret
didn't.
Service.
Oswald was perfectly, if it was in fact Oswald.
Well,
but
here we go.
That's why I said the sniper.
No, he's talking about the Secret Service.
Yeah.
Is that right?
The Secret Service guys, yeah. No, that's pretty well.
Could have gone down there and gotten a couple of shots.
No, because
you think Oswald was in there drinking with them?
That would be awesome.
That'd be messed up.
that would be weird
take
if
this
that was the case.
So
conspiracy
did
to
you
a
know
whole new
that? Did you know he's buried here in Fort Worth?
Yeah, he's in. I can't remember which cemetery it is.
I know where it's at, but I don't know
There's
the
a
name of
bar
it.
in Arlington named after him.
Yeah, it was in Dallas. Yeah.
Or is it?
Well, so
It was Arlington.
yeah, it's funny that having been raised around here, I know a lot of people who have stories and conspiracies and various other things.
Right.
I met the guy Jim Mars. That wrote the book that Oliver Stone movie JFK was based on. He lives in Springtown.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody lived in Springtown.
Yeah. And so the movie was called the book was called Crossfire, and of course had the second shooter thing and the grassy knoll and all that kind of business.
Yeah.
And, it's taken pretty seriously. Well, the reason I met him was because I used to work at the Borders Books and Music, and we had him in for an author signing for his new book, which was called Alien Agenda, or whatever it was, like how the aliens were actually already entrenched in our government.
Underground lizard people?
Underground lizard people.
I already brought these up with Molly today.
Yeah. And so it kind of cast a little bit of doubt on his previous work.
All right. Well, he's older now, right?
Yeah, he's an older guy now, yeah.
Maybe
But who
Underground
knows?
Lizard People was part of his
But it was
mental
kind of crazy
decay.
because I was like, JFK, aliens, But then again,
That was
maybe
a hard
I'm,
shift.
maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe
They
that's
could be
totally
totally
realistic.
intertwined, yeah.
I one of my hobbies that I love to do with my daughter is to watch YouTube conspiracy theory videos, and I love the reptoid stuff, like the reptile people.
I haven't even gotten into that yet. I know what you're talking about.
There's the
because
mole
I listen to a
people,
lot of
there's the reptile
podcasts, but-
people, there's the there's all kinds of. I just there's something about somebody with a really crazy ass idea who's really really into it.
Yeah.
That's just fascinating to me.
See, I was brought up in the church,
Mm-hmm.
so I have to be careful what I subject myself to. I'm highly like
How suggestible to
Yeah.
wild ideas.
Yeah.
I like them just because there's so life sometimes can be kind of boring,
Yeah.
and there's perfectly explainable normal things that happen
Folks,
all
he's
the time.
not talking about 2020.
no,
2020's been like damage report. every
right. That's true. I haven't had time to watch YouTube conspiracy
Right,
videos because
right.
everything's been blowing up all over the damn place. But
No, we've switched to ghosts, and we're talking about ghosts. Yeah.
right,
That's
but
our spare time.
there's just something about people who go out and go, no, okay, here's this normal, predictable reality. What if I go way out on this limb into
Like
stuff that
Hillary
is
Clinton was a lizard person. That was so 2019.
I thought we were talking about mysteries. That's a fact.
Oh.
Yeah, no, because there's that video like where she turns a certain way and suddenly you see the lizard eyes or whatever.
Oh,
and it's just
nice.
It's
There's-
high class Adobe right there.
Reticulating.
and they're really and that they're really high quality. It's kind of like the Bigfoot videos. They're always blurry and
Why are they still blurry?
I don't know.
Figured this out.
so fast.
So fast.
That's
I
why
had
we
a-
can't catch him. He's
my bassist Clay Anderson. He had an idea, and again, this is idea versus execution. I thought it was a great idea. I wasn't able to execute it. He wanted to go out to East Texas with the squatchers, like the people who hunt for. And like
We've got
basically
squatchers in East Texas.
oh my gosh! In the piney woods,
God.
they're out there hunting for squatch day and night
Just don't go to Tyler, Texas, man.
because they're good eating.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But he's like, I would like to get embedded with a pod of squatchers and just like hang out with them for a month and edit it into a documentary of some kind. I said, that is gold. That is freaking gold if you were
Gold
ever
or a
able
total
to do
waste of
that.
time. I don't know.
if you can get that going, I didn't pull the trigger on that because it would involve squatting in the woods for a month with a bunch of squatchers. So.
Questionable individuals, yeah.
There's other things that happen in those woods, I would imagine.
They were probably all brought up in the same church as me. They're out
Oh,
there
you
hunting-
think so?
Yeah, if they're out there hunting squatch. Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on. I don't know. I'm not sure which book of the Bible the Sasquatch is in, but it's
Genesis. Definitely Genesis.
in the beginning,
That's where we came from.
God created hairy man people.
You
yeah.
asked me about the simulation earlier, right?
Oh, you've had time to think on
I
this.
have had time to think about that, and
Okay.
I had 1 cup of coffee. Apparently, I needed 2. But so we had a lunar eclipse in 2016, right? No, 2017.
Had a couple, right?
Well, no, not
Don't we
not
get, like,
lunar
one a
eclipse,
year?
Solar eclipse that we in the United States could see, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was very rare because we were in the right spot.
Yeah,
and-
and that almost never happens over on our side of the world.
Right. I
However,
think it was
those
cloudy
happen
that
all
day,
the
and we didn't get
time.
to see it.
Yes.
I remember
Right.
being
I
disappointed.
saw bits and pieces of it because I remember this. I remember the reflection of the leaves on the pavement
Yeah,
was
and the
curved.
little
It was
half moons, little half
yeah.
moons.
Yeah. it was
So during that time, it was like right after the election, and everybody was like, it's the end of the world. I'm like, my theory is that shit happened and we just fell through a gateway. The solar eclipse was a goddamn gateway and we just
But see that
haphazardly fell
now
through
did
it,
that?
and now we're in an alternate reality.
But did we do that because of the weasel?
I think I think the weasel had a huge.
There's too many things.
Have you seen Pickle
too many
Rick? We
things.
know how a pickle can roll into the sewers, and you can magically end up in a Russian base. I mean, come on.
Oh.
Think about
Oh,
it.
she's a Rick and Morty
Sorry, I'm a
person.
Rick and
So.
Oh, okay. God, do you know what you just did to my brain?
Oh my God, you're not a Rick and Morty fan.
I don't have time for Rick and Morty. I'm really. I
on
keep
your
myself.
breaks, you need to just go ahead and educate yourself on some Rick
I'm
and
on a
Morty. It's
book right now
fantastic.
that I have spent the last month trying to read. I'm like halfway through it. That's my free
It's
time.
you know what's funny about that is that there's a whole lot of people now who are reading more because their jobs are like for whatever reason are slowing down, and I've done that myself. I've actually found myself going back to reading, and I had realized how long it had been since I'd actually sat down
and read
a
on
damn book.
page. Yeah.
Well,
my reason is I feel myself getting dumber as I get older. So I'm like, I got to do something to arrest the descent.
Well, but I think that's good though. The people. So my grandma passed away last year, and she was 100. She was 100 years old. And she maintained her faculties
The whole time?
The whole time.
Jesus, that is incredible.
But what she did most of the day was read books.
Well,
And
you seem very sharp yourself.
That's
that
because
must be a
in the
genetic
past I read books. I'm trying to make sure that stays the case so that I don't start losing. Because if I do nothing but tweet,
oh yeah,
the
it's
brain
over.
cells are just gonna slide down into
I mean, you've seen what it did to our president.
Yeah, well,
He started off strong. He's on the Twitter thing. By the end of his presidency, he's
And you're like,
COVID-19.
you're dumb, hurt,
Pretty badly.
And
COVID-19 riots.
well, they
and
gave
what
so
else?
Microsoft built an AI with a Twitter account.
Oh God,
And-
I'm sorry, I did this. I did this to us. Okay.
And so basically they programmed with some basic parameters and said, okay, go forth and tweet and respond, and we'll see, and let it develop its
So it's
worldview.
basically its own Twitter account, and
Yeah.
it does whatever it wants.
Right. It does whatever it goes.
No.
And so by the end of about 2 months, it had become a raging white supremacist.
But I mean, that data's coming from somewhere, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
it's like it's
pulling
responding to
in information, and it was also, I think, a flat earther, and it was like it was seriously
Ooh.
it was fucked up.
Okay.
From its exposure
Well, maybe
to the
we
Twitter.
need to put the brakes on this whole AI thing, because I mean, if it's
Or-
going to turn into a flat earther, we don't need.
but
that shit.
but I think also it gives me a heads up when I'm on the box and I'm tweeting all this, and I'm like, okay, so what's happening to my brain when I'm on here coming into contact with this shit? So, I got to be careful about
See, now
that
I'm
kind.
feeling guilty. It's been like 2, maybe 3 years since I picked up a book and read it in full. Actually, I take that back. I've read a portion of.
You
his
read
book.
mine,
Read
yeah.
a portion
but
of his book,
Yeah.
but for a
but
while
that was
there,
that was because I want to quiz you on it,
Yeah,
But
I was like, oh yeah, go ahead, quiz me. I'm like, a tiny portion in. 'Cause I
So
haven't
can
had a
the
chance.
listeners get a copy of your book, or can
They
they
can.
get it on Audible? Or?
It's not audiobook at this point, but you can get it's on all the digital stuff, so you can get a Kindle or a Nook or whatever, but you can also get a physical copy if you go to Amazon or any of your Barnes & Noble, any of your major
Or if you want to
retailers.
pay Matt directly.
You could do that. It's on my Bandcamp page. If you go to thematthewshow.bandcamp.com, both of those are on there. There's also a new essay collection that I put out called Other Gods, and that's available on all the major retailers as well. So if you look up Matthew Broyles, Broyles, not Boyles, as a lot of people have it.
Put that R in there.
Got to put the R. Then you can find any of my printed works. I've gotten those two, and then the essay collection, and I printed a couple of. I told you about the Essay Club earlier, which was kind of a group of collective writers. There's a couple of Essay Club collections on there as
Before
well.
we go any further, I know we mentioned this earlier, but the name of those two books, Rewired and
Threnody. Threnody is it's an archaic word that means elegy or memorial, and that has plot reasons for why it means that. But one of them, they're both kind of sci-fi, speculative fiction. The Rewired takes place a little closer to our own time. Threnody takes place quite a bit farther in the future than that. And I had just kind of done the thing where I'd been writing songs for 20-odd years, and I thought, what happens if I write a book? So did that. And, I tried writing a book when I was in my 20s, and I quickly came against a wall that I just had not lived enough.
Yeah.
And so I put it down for a while, and then finally in my late 30s, early 40s, I was like, okay, I think I've lived enough now that I can.
That's pretty
say
awesome
some
that you
things,
realize
know?
that in your 20s, because I think in our 20s we're pretty damn self-assured.
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And I thought
I think we know everything.
I thought I was a fucking brilliant songwriter at that time. Like I thought this is genius what I'm coming up with now. And I cannot even listen to the stuff I was writing
Yeah.
back then. So
Yeah.
I was 28 before I wrote a song that was worth a damn, honestly. And sometimes it just takes a while.
Yeah.
That's why I get mad at these people like Billie Eilish or whatever who come up with this stuff like when they're 16.
Yeah. You bastard. Yeah.
Either they've seen some shit or have gone through some.
Well,
shit.
that's often what the case is that there's been some kind of reason why they had to grow up quick.
Right.
In my case, I had a pretty cushy upbringing, so I can't really complain about
I
that.
think 28's the right age though to like. That's
Y-
when
it's funny.
males are fully formed. I think. In the brain box.
Dudes take a long time to grow up.
Yeah.
And plus, I think that it's funny because you have the
I
forever.
like that you said males are fully formed.
Well,
we have reached max evolution.
I mean, it's
like Pokemon. It's like
it's
know.
a thing
like,
though, right?
It is. Oh, it
males
is.
at a different rate than
Yes.
women.
Yeah, we have
women mature way
Women
quicker
are
than
like
dudes.
in their 20s going, God, you're.
Yeah, and that's why y'all live longer.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's, well, I say my grandma lived 100 years old.
Exactly.
And her husband died 20 years before that. So, I think we have a thing where you got like the Forever 27 Club, right? You got your Jimi Hendrixes and your people who kind of peaked early.
Yeah.
But then they've often put so much of themselves into it that there was nowhere they could go from there. Like
Right.
and they had kind of committed everything. And there's something to be said for that. But there's also something to be said for people like Tom Waits or people who've been around a while, who kind of have had years and years of experience to impart to people. Kurt Vonnegut was one of those who he'd just been around forever.
Mm-hmm.
And just to hear his perspective on things in the later part of his life was fantastic because he had decades upon decades to draw from. To kind of Noam Chomsky is another one like that. He's seen everything. And so I would hope that by the time I'm in my 70s, 80s, that maybe I will know what the hell I'm doing.
Hopefully you got your
and
shit
be
together
able-
by
I-
then.
That's the other thing.
know?
I certainly the hell hope so.
Right.
And also I hope that
What are you kidding?
no, but that's what I'm saying. is-
Nobody has their shit together their whole lives. They just,
well,
what
some
is
people more
surely
than
is
others.
shit
Some people
being
more than
together?
others.
Surely you have at least your
Truly.
mind together
Yeah.
at 70.
yes.
That's
we
that's the other thing is that different people go through different things. I mean, you
Yeah.
get these people who go through stuff like I don't know the Holocaust or whatever, and that shapes. That's a very fundamental thing. My generation kind of had when we were in our early 20s, we had the 9/11 thing pop up. Of course, with hers, that was when they were
I was
kids.
I
you
was
know.
11. My grandfather died the night before, and then 9/11 happened, and
Right.
then
Damn.
from there it's just been a steady tumbling
And
of
so-
bullshit my entire life. So.
But so you got that, and then my kid is 14, and now we have all this COVID business and all this other stuff's going on. So everybody kind of has and of course I was raised during the Cold War, so that kind of sets your mindset a little bit. So I think all of us have a
Oh no.
few.
Desert Storm.
Well, there was that. Well, that
I don't
freaked me
think
out
you're
at the time.
Cold War old.
Well, no. Oh, I am 46.
But you weren't old enough to really remember all that.
I remembered it because I used to listen to Sting and whatnot, and like
Okay.
he had songs about the Russians bombing everybody and crap like
Okay.
I mean and I watched freaking you couldn't watch a movie back then without the Russians being
That's
in it
true.
doing something.
That's true.
I mean it was just kind of a freaking Hunt for Red October and whatnot.
It's still technically a theme.
Yeah,
Right.
But,
Like
I mean,
every-
Cold War, that was like 76 to...
No, that was 1945 through 1990.
Okay.
The Soviet Union finally fell in 1990, and
Okay.
so
I'm an idiot.
we were no. We were by the time the 90s came around, it had kind of dropped off, but it definitely shapes your. We talk about Desert Storm, so for instance, that was happening when I was a junior in high school, and I was afraid I was going to get drafted.
Yeah.
That sounds hilarious
you
in
should have
hindsight.
been. Yeah.
In hindsight,
Well,
that
back
sounds
then they were
hilarious.
You
talking
still
about
got
it.
your
Right.
draft card.
I got it in my
in your
pocket, yeah.
wallet.
Because my father got drafted for Vietnam.
Yeah.
And the same day he got drafted for the Army. So the same day he went and signed up for the Air Force because he figured he wasn't going to go over to Vietnam. And he spent the war in Fort Worth, Texas, at the Carswell Air Force Base.
Smart man, your father.
And but I had it on my mind because I was going to turn 18, and I was like, oh shit,
go join the Air Force.
Like I had my plan. I was going to do. I was going to go join the Air Force. Of course, that war lasted 3 months. So
it was quick.
I didn't really have to worry about it. But then I had people like my bass player Clay, who fought in the Second Iraq War, as it was a Marine, and that has shaped his experience.
Thank you, Clay, for your service.
Absolutely, no, but I think
Congratulations, Clay.
Oh, he just got engaged. That's right. But I think that we all have things in our lives that kind of shape,
for sure,
what we think is worth thinking about and writing about and communicating about. And in my case, I've been at this for 30 years now, and so I pull from a lot of different places, and that's probably why sometimes it's a book, sometimes it's a poem, sometimes it's an essay, sometimes it's a song, and I think that's kind of cool that I'm able to do that. It's also a little bit confusing to people because they're like, well,
what do you do,
what
man?
do you do? And I'm like, well,
That's okay. You're a creator.
What I do most of the time is I order furniture for Tarrant County College, but the rest of the time, yes, you come up with a. But what's always happening, and you know this, I mean, it's the thing that's happening in your brain, is what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this?
Shut up. Right.
And it's real hard, and she has that.
I wait till 4 a.m, just like
right. And I would be up till 4 a.m. if I didn't have to be up.
I give myself melatonin once a week.
Yeah.
I should.
I used to live on it, but it got to the point where melatonin stopped working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I had to supplement for a while because I do the melatonin, which, by the way, inhibits virus replication a little bit.
Really?
So,
His doctor actually. So
my doctor told me that.
He was like, "Oh, I think I'm getting a little sick or whatever."
I was
and
paranoid.
he
I was like,
did
"It's the COVID."
Shoving melatonin down your throat.
Yeah, well,
Take this, Matthew.
I called him because I was saying, okay, I don't want to be paranoid, but I have a scratch in my throat and a little bit of sinus. And he's like, okay,
That was all of us, right?
That was everybody
we all
calling their
thought that.
doctor,
Yeah.
and so he was like, okay, do you have trouble breathing? No. Okay, do you have So he gave
Everybody
me a thing.
knows.
Are you bleeding from your butt?
But right, which thankfully I was not.
That's Ebola. Don't worry about it.
That's a problem.
We're worried about
different
corona
issue.
right now.
Different issue. But he was like, yeah. So here's one thing you can do: take melatonin because it inhibits virus replication, and take selenium,
Freaking selenium.
because the patients in China who made it through the COVID, who didn't die from it,
Take a selenium.
they had a higher percentage of selenium in it. Now,
Selenium is found in pork,
right.
Love pork.
and he eats a lot of pork.
I bet I eat just as much or more.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm sorry for our kosher friends who are listening, but
It's okay.
you
They've
eat some more
accepted us
pork.
heathens. They've accepted
Go
us.
get some selenium. Take
I
some
did
selenium
like
tea.
that somebody had posted that people were using Mazel Tov cocktails at somebody. It's kind of like
Mazel tov.
yeah, like
That's not what that means. That's not how any of this works.
so
Matthew, I got to tie this up, man.
Sorry.
I got another guy coming in.
Yeah.
Thank y'all so much for being here.
Thank
I
you.
would like, if you'll allow it, I would like for us to do this again.
I would love to do it.
When the wheels get rolling.
Absolutely.
And we're back to
when I have more
100%.
things to actually say I'm doing instead of just
You're a very creative
hanging out.
individual. I don't think we're going to have any issue having a conversation. So you guys are welcome to come and promote anything, anytime. And
I appreciate that a
If you
lot.
want to hear more about the local art scene and how it's collaborating with the music scene, you could have me
for
on
sure.
next.
Yeah, I'd like to dive into that.
Yeah, look
full
up.
force next time. But
Yeah, so check out Articulation Podcast. Check out the Barbershop Podcast. We're both on the Funky Town Podcast Network, and we both have Facebook pages for that. You can also check out www.thematthewshow.com for it's kind of a portal to lead you to all of the crap that I do. Art of Trista Studios is another one.
And also, before we head out of here, if you're looking for a way to check out and support the local music scene here in Fort Worth, well, there goes the camera. If y'all are looking for a way to support the Fort Worth music scene, check out Mass, right?
Yes.
Which they're
Main
located
at Southside.
Main Southside's another location, right? Oh no, that is Mass.
That's what Mass stands for. Yeah, because sometimes if you just look up Mass, you get science pages and things. So Main at Southside.
Or like,
They're at
things about the church you don't care about.
or right. They're at Main Street, just north of Rosedale, and that's a good place to go. I trying to think if they're open right now. They're like partially open.
By the time this comes out, because
They
it's going to be
may
a
actually
couple
be
weeks
open.
before we drop this, it'll
Okay.
be open. I'm sure. Lola's is a great place.
Those is good. We were there
real
last
relaxed.
night. I should say that inside of Main at Southside is Dreamy Life Records, which is a really good record store.
Cool.
And
Good
Lola's
place
is
to find local music.
right now. Lola's is open. They're back. The trailer park is
Patio
open.
area?
The inside is not yet, but at some point it will be. I would also encourage you to go to where were we the other night? My brain is already fried.
We were at a lot of places.
Oh, well, yeah, you go to
today.
the Flying Saucer is
Flying
open, and they do local acts as well. Just go support local music whenever possible. You know what you can do? You can find, there's a group on Facebook called Fort Worth Music Community, and there's, in fact, it may have been where I saw your post calling for people to be on your show.
Could be.
But anyway, if you go there, there's a lot of places where you can see where there are acts playing, and also live music streams from home.
Yep.
Which right now is kind of people's bread and butter.
There
Awesome.
I don't know who they are, who's doing it now, but there were people who were putting together like basically just stream websites.
Yeah, there was Help Fort Worth TX or something.
Yes.
Those have kind of fallen off a little bit, but you can still find it in the Fort Worth music community. There's another group just called Fort Worth Music.
My suggestion is keep doing those to whomever might be hosting those or creating those. Please keep doing that. That helps the music industry, and it also helps artists and people who are starving right now.
Perfect. Guys, thank y'all so much.
Thank
I look
you, sir.
forward to having you on here again.
Yeah, would love to.
And anytime y'all got something you want me to post up on the community Facebook page or whatever, just holler at me and we'll get it up.
We'll do it.
All
Thank you.
right.
Wakanda forever.
Cool. Thank you guys for listening to Fort Worth Roots, and we'll see you for the next episode. Y'all have a good one. Thanks again for listening.